you today is a little bit about what I do with my work, but I thought I get so many questions from teachers, parents and students saying, how do I motivate my kids to practice? Do you guys have that as well? Yeah. No, I said. So I've looked, there's more and more research now into how we can motivate our students in really effective and healthy ways. Gone are the days of the tyrant teachers, which beat you over the... Has anyone had that before? Yes? Okay. That's probably not an effective way to teach anymore, so just letting you know. But the idea is that now the research is going into what are the basic psychological needs of us as human beings. And so it's really at a really deep level, and this also flows through with music. And so now the research is going into what's called self-determination theory. Is anyone familiar with self-determination theory? Great, this is new stuff, excellent. So self-determination theory is all about intrinsic motivation. How we can inspire our kids and develop that internal motivation so our kids can be really inspired and lit up inside so that they are just doing practice because they love it. That's the goal. So there's less motivation from external sources like us as teachers saying you have to practice and you need to do your scales. And it's more about instilling that intrinsic motivation within our students. How do we do that? So with self-determination theory, there are 3 areas that covers how we can develop that intrinsic motivation. The biggest area, and probably the most important, is about autonomy. We provide autonomy for our students so that they can have choice. They can choose the direction of where they want to go in their music education. You think any time that you're doing something that you love doing and that you're absorbed in, most of the time you choose to do that and you can just be absorbed in it. Whereas who likes to be told what to do all the time? I know I don't. So autonomy is basically choice. When we have choice, we're more invested in what we do, and that develops intrinsic motivation, and that flows through for our entire life. We're trying to make lifelong learners here of music, not just for the time that they're having lessons. It's a whole expanded way of enjoying music. So students that might have a lack of choice, they tend to feel controlled, like that old teacher beating you over the hand. So if you feel controlled, generally students will do one of 2 things. They'll either comply with that controlling behaviour, or they'll defy it. Has anyone had any defiant students before? They fight, yeah. If you ever have a defiant student, that probably means that they want to have some more choice. They want to choose more of what they want to do. And they're resisting because they feel like they're being controlled. So that's where autonomy kicks in. So I've put there's a sheet of paper in your bags that you've got. It's just a one sheet, looks like a chart like that. You can get that out for me, please. We can encourage and provide choices by letting our students choose the repertoire that they're about to play. Now, the thing is with autonomy, a lot of people sort of think, oh, that means that students have free rein. They can do whatever they want, and you just sit back and let them. The idea with autonomy is that we provide guardrails. We could say, okay, what piece would you like to play? Here's an option of 3 choices. And then they can choose, okay, I really like the sound of that piece. Just simply by having that little choice, then they're more invested in their learning and they'll develop that intrinsic motivation. Also, the musical exercises you might want to play in lessons or that they might want to practice during the week. If they need to improve a certain area of their technique, then you could either say you have to do this exercise, you have to play your scales, or you can say, okay, we've got a choice, you can play these types of exercises or these types of exercises. Again, they have choice. It might be a choice of 1 or 2 or 3 things, but they have some level of choice. And allowing students to develop in their own way, to find their own way, to experiment and be creative. And they have choice and more investment into their education. When we look at the structure, So tutors clarify the musical learning structure to students. So this means that you can actually say, okay, in the lesson today we can structure the lesson, we can do our scales to begin with, or we can do scales at the end. Which one would you like to do? Again, it's not, we're not changing much, it's just a subtle change, but this can make a big difference to motivation. We can offer and discuss plans, our plans of attack for our students in the lessons, and clarifying what is expected of students and what tutors offer in return. So music education is a two-way street. It's not us as teachers giving all the demands, so the students can also demand something of us. If students need something, we also need to come to the party and meet in the middle. The rationale part of autonomy support is key as well, because then if we can explain why some of the things that we are assigning to our students, why it's actually important. You could say to your students, practice your scales. And they'll be like, oh, okay, sure, I'll have to. Whereas if you provide a rationale, practice your scales because that's going to help you improve your pieces. That's going to help improve your technique. And so then they can actually understand why they're doing what they're doing, rather than just being told what to do. So why musical technique exercises are important, putting it in a wider context. So if you are saying, let's start with some scales, connect that with something in the music, in the musical repertoire that they're playing. If you can make that connection, then they can understand the value of it, and then they'll be more invested in it as well. And as well, providing praise based on improvement. Progress, not perfection. If your students are improving, praise them. We're not aiming for perfection, because they'll never get there. I've never played a perfect concert in my life, I never will. That's not the goal. If I'm improving on something, then I'm like, great. But if my students are improving, really saying, well done. You've obviously put in a lot of work. Even if it's a tiny little improvement, still praise improvement over perfection. And then finally, perspective taking. So tutors acknowledge the students' points of view. So we're listening, we're not just telling. So listening carefully, asking questions, but not expecting a certain answer to come back. I sometimes get the best information from my students. I ask them questions, they give me something I've never thought of before, and I'm like, I'll steal that and I'll use that in my teaching in the future. So we can ask questions and listen. Listen to what their perspective is. If we can do that, then we're engaging more with them and they can engage more in their learning. And using perspective taking. So say, I understand that's difficult for you. I know it's a struggle. It's hard. I know learning is not an easy thing. But if we can encourage them to persevere through that, then that can be great for their intrinsic motivation. So the other two parts of self-determination theory, so we've got autonomy, which we've covered on those sheets. The next one is competence. So this is developing mastery, helping our students develop those skills through deliberate practice, so they can build up their skills and gain that self-confidence and self-belief. I've just released an ebook on effective practice techniques. So if you would like a copy, some of you already have. Dom, thanks. Yeah, John. If you would like a copy, then come and see me afterwards. I'll grab your email address and I can send it through. But it's based around deliberate practice strategies, self-regulated learning, goal setting, a whole range of other things. And then finally, the third part of self-determination theory is about relatedness. So it's about relationships. So if we can make the students feel like they're valued and feel like they belong where they are, then they're naturally going to be more intrinsically motivated and realise that what they're doing has value and has worth. So this is us with our students, but also students with their peers, students with their parents has a big impact on their motivation. But we want to try and create that safe space where they can all feel comfortable, they can be themselves, and then they can really invest in the music education and learn so very much. So hopefully that's given you a few little nuggets of information. I would again suggest you to check out the the research paper as well. It's not heavy reading, thank goodness. That's why I chose it. But if you do have any other questions or anything like that, then I think we have question sessions later on as well. So hopefully that's given you a few ideas and food for thought. Great. Thanks, guys.